Hi, I'm Mike Thrussell, Sea Handling Consultant at ABU Garcia, and this is Rob Wyatt, Product Development Manager for ABU Garcia.
Morning.
Today we're going to look at a new range of rods, the ABU Revo Bass and the ABU Revo Boat Braid rods.
Great, and we're also going to look at some styles of fishing you can use these rods for. So Mike, should we have a look at the rods?
We'll have a look at the rods. The general concept of the ABU Revo Bass rods is ultra slim diameter, very, very lightweight, but it's important to also understand that we've designed these rods to actually be compatible with the low profile reels. These reels are the modern concept. This is what people are using now for all the lure fishing from both boat and shore, particularly for bass.
Because we designed them to be used with a low profile reel because it keeps the rod very slim, very light, but it also keeps the centre of gravity low. So when you're playing a fish, it feels really good in your hands. So Mike, this is the 7'4". Perhaps you'd like to explain why we've gone for a 7'4" length in this particular model?
The 7'4" is designed for both boat and shore. From the shore you'd use it for walking the dog, which is working surface popping plugs, particularly amongst surface breaking rocks where you need accurate casting, and that's where it's most effective. But also, all these rods, we've tried to design them to be compatible with a lot of different styles of fishing, so the angler who buys these rods can get the maximum out of them. So for instance, this one off the boat, you could fish it with jig heads and with shads for bass, also for pollock, for cod. You can catch ling on them. So
really it's an all-round artificial fishing rod. You know, you can use it for soft baits, hard baits, jig heads as you said, deep or shallow water.
Absolutely right. And the soft plastic market, and that's what we call it, the soft plastic market, be it plugs or rubber artificial eels and shads, that is the new market. That's where the growth area is. That's where the anglers really want to start fishing now.
Absolutely. So Mike, we looked at the 7'4" version. We also make an 8 foot and a 9 foot. So perhaps you can tell us, why we've gone for an 8 and 9 foot version as well.
Well, the 7'4" is for single-handed and double-handed casting, accurate casting, when you're working from a boat into surface breaking rocks, okay, or even off the shore. But as we've said, we also use it for leadhead and for shad fishing, etc. But the 8 foot is more precise. It's a casting rod. It's designed for shore fishing, for what we call walking the dog, which is working surface popping plugs and also for deep diving plugs. But you can also again use it for working jig heads and lightweight shads.
Okay. And the 9 foot is different, how?
The 9 foot, the extra length, it makes it perfect for general spinning from rocks and from shore, but also you use it for what we call drop shot fishing, which is working a lure off a paternoster, and we also use it for vertical jigging, which is working soft plastics, which are sand eel imitators, that type of thing. When you're on a boat drifting, you actually drop the lure away, let it trot away a little bit, you feel it touch bottom, and then you just work the lure. Just work the lure like that, and that's how bass like to take baits, hard on the seabed. It's very, very effective, and it's a very new technique.
Okay. So to summarise that technique, basically the lure is coming up, and then the fish are seeing it, and it's getting into the strike zone.
Basically what we're trying to do, we're trying to simulate that type of action.
Okay.
And it's a natural action, and bass have got a habit of taking on the drop when it's actually dropping back, not only when it's going forward. Extremely effective.
So the 3 Revo rods are very versatile.
That's
and
where we design them.
It's important to mention that we can use them, as you can see here, with a spinning reel, the low profile reel as we described, but also a standard small multiplier.
That's correct.
Be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's also worth looking too at the actual format of the rods. They're 2-piece equal section. They use all Fuji rings, low profile. And one or two other little things too. We've made the handle very, very comfortable. The reel seat, as we said, is low profile, but it fits the hand whether you use multiplier or fixed spool. It's very comfy, very streamlined. And one other little thing we've got is we've actually got a carborundum stone set into the butt cap, which means when you're fishing, if you get a blunt hook, which you often do when you're working bass lures through rocks, you can actually sharpen the hook. It's basically a hook sharpening station as part of the rod.
So that's the 3 Revo bass rods. We also make 2 Revo boat rods. So perhaps we should have a look at them.
Right.
So Mike, we looked at the bass rods We mentioned the boat rods. We have two boat rods. We have a 12-20 and a 20-30 pound class. So again, perhaps we can say, well, why would we use a 20-30 as opposed to a 12-20? I know it's obvious from the names that you'd use a different line strength, but obviously there's different situations for both rods.
Yeah, the 12-20 you would choose for drift fishing over sandbanks in relatively shallow water. But you can also use these rods again for lure fishing if you want to. You can work your shads, you can use flying collar rigs, etc. Where a lot of people use the 12-20s is when they're place fishing, particularly early in the year when you get a lot of place. It's the finesse of the rod, it's the response and the direct feedback of information in these braid rods that's the key to using them.
So you feel every indentation over the sandbank when the place settles on the bait?
Absolutely. It's all about bite detection because the braid is a non-stretch line. So it's important that that information is transmitted through the rods into the angler's hands. That's the key to it. The 20-30 you would use in deeper water situations when you're fishing for bigger rays like thornback rays, small-eyed rays, etc., and also for turbot. But you can also use the 20-30 around wrecks when you're drifting, again when you're looking for cod, for pollock, that type of thing.
Again, a couple of really versatile rods.
Absolutely.
And the main difference, I guess, with these is the blank construction, because we've gone for a long tip, short butt section. Again, the reason for this is because we want that subtle bite detection, but you also want a progressive power flow through the blank. Yep.
That's where the long tip comes in. You need a long tip with a braid rod because what you get then is you get perfect performance and a perfect power curve. Because how we build these rods is we build them with a very soft tip, which again is to work with the non-stretch braid because you need the suppleness, because you can otherwise start to put a lot of pressure on the hook hold. But it's very important with these rods to understand that in the midsection, the power starts to come in. That's where the feel and the response is. And that's why we build them long tip, short butt, to maximise performance.
And the retail price of all the Revo rods is around £160. So Mike, we spent some time looking at the rods. Perhaps we should just look at the Revo reels and why they're so well suited to these rods.
The reason the Revo Inshore in particular is so well suited to this style of fishing and this style of rod is its low profile. It really balances the rod, but it's very, very lightweight. But also the reel is very, very strong. It's a one-piece cage. It's also very smooth, which is very important when you work in lures. It's got stainless steel ball bearings. It's got a drag system that's long and progressive, so you're using very light lines. You don't overtax. You can actually set the drag to suit a particular breaking strain of line, and that's very, very important. Also, when you're using braid, you can really crank your drag up, if you like, so that you can really make sure that when a fish actually takes the lure, the hooks go in. That's the key to it, because a lot of the fish we're fishing for with lures have got a hard, bony mouth, bass in particular. That's another key attribute. But it's the balance, the low profile and the strength of the reels that's really key.
Sure, sure. And as you say, the powerful drag, when a fish is actually going back into the wreck or the rocks, you've got the power to crank down on it.
That's right. The other thing that we need to say as well is when you get into the 8-foot and the 9-foot, although they're compatible with multipliers, a lot of people would choose, and wisely so, a fixed spool for its versatility. Because again, if they're fishing from the shore and you're casting into headwinds, a lot of people prefer a fixed spool. It's much easier to use, but it's also very precise.